Hey, everybody, it's noon on the East Coast on the first Monday of March. So we're here for Military Monday. This is Bob Wheeler with ClearedJobs.Net, and thanks for joining us. And we've got a really special edition of our Military Monday going on today. We're going to be talking about resumes. And, resumes are one of those things that everybody likes to talk about. There's always advice that's out there. We're going to take it from an angle of looking at four actual resumes today of people, some transitioning military folks have kindly sent in some resumes for us to take a look at and make some comments about here live with everybody. So we've pulled out their personal information, so you're not going to see exactly who they are, but these are actually real resumes of folks who wanted to offer them up to get some advice and some critique. So I'm also excited because we really kind of cover the spectrum of types of transitioning job seekers here. We've got some senior folks. We got looks like might be some more mid-level, more junior folks. We've got some people who different industries. So I think it's going to be really cool. I mean, they say that couple of cool quotes that made me think about this as I was getting ready. There's an old famous literature quote that all happy families are resemble each other, but all bad families are unique in their own special way. Same way with resumes. In some ways, there's a lot of things that are that all good resumes. If it gets you a job, it's a good resume, right? Um, you know, Tougher resumes have got individual things. So that also made me think of something else. Just keep in mind here, we talk about stuff. Good advice in general is something that works for 90% of the people 90% of the time. So anytime you get advice from anybody else in job seeking wise, just know that's what kind of constitutes good advice. We're going to look a little bit about trying to sneak into that extra 10%, whether it be from being a veteran, or also whether it's the extra 10% about where you are in your professional career. So we're going to look at some of these resumes here, and we're going to kind of get a good feel for things. So a couple tips. We're going to be showing most of the screen is going to be the resume itself. So I'm going to be like in a little bitty window on the side, but the resume itself is going to be on a bigger screen. So if you're not already on, if you didn't like make your screen bigger, do the full screen mode, you might want to because it'll be a little bit easier to read as you see that I'm referencing some things. And at the end, we're going to give you the email address if you'd like to send in your resume to possibly be considered on future editions of Military Monday. There's going to be a good email address for that as well. So, with that being said, this is Bob, ClearedJobs.Net. Let's jump right into our first resume. All right, let me drop that banner out of there real quick so we don't have it going on anymore. So this is the first resume. It was sent in, and you can see the first thing you're going to see is the it's a two-page resume, right? So you can see both pages there. Now Ashley's going to kind of zoom in a little bit for us. She's doing all the magic behind the scenes there. She's going to pull some stuff up, and you can take a look at this gentleman's resume here. I'm going to kind of start from the very top. So first of all, name and clearance, which is great. Contact information is good. So there's nothing issues with that. This summary piece, we're going to talk a little bit about summary pieces, and this can be, I get it. This can be a real challenge for folks coming out of the military because it's like I don't really know what it is that I do, or maybe I kind of do. Also, when you're creating a general resume like this, like these are all kind of general purpose resumes, you don't exactly have a specific focus. So first of all, when you go to apply for a specific position or for a specific company, this is one of those areas you're definitely going to want to tweak a little bit to really target what it is you're talking about. Who are you talking to? But as I look at this particular resume here, it starts off with a results-driven leader, over 20 years of proven experience with large, diverse organizations, expertise leading defensive cyberspace operations. Um, this is kind of a lot of words, and it's written in a way that's very, it sounds like an evaluation, a performance evaluation, or something like that. It also leans very heavy into leadership. I mean, I did a count on this. It says the word leader in here 5 times. um, so this person is and there's if you've been a leader in the military, that can be something that is uh, I just got a note that says that we may have an issue with the live stream going into LinkedIn. I don't know if that's true or not. Um, I'm just going to remove that, and we're going to keep on going. So if you're not seeing things in LinkedIn, let us know on the chat. Like I said, I just got a little notification in the comments box. Looks like it came via LinkedIn. So let us know about those pieces. Anyway, back to this summary section here. It's leaning heavy into the leadership piece, and if you're coming out of the military, that can be a challenge because that's what you've been doing. Um, for the last, X number of years has been leading. Maybe you haven't been actually doing the business of whatever it is, so you've been leading people. So you want to lean into that. I'm not sure about, people listing your rank on there. This guy says United States Air Force veteran lieutenant colonel. One of the things to be wary about when you start listing your rank is it does in some ways kind of tell people that you're still focused on your identity being in the military. Unless you're applying for positions or you're trying to get into positions where it's specifically, it's going to be dealing with specific Air Force operations or something like that. This can be an issue, so I don't really recommend people announcing your rank on your resume, because you want to announce, who it is and what you do, as opposed to just what your rank was. We're going to slide down a little bit there. Now you can see the areas of expertise. This was done really well on the areas of expertise. I like the way, I really suggest all resumes have a section similar to this, where you list exactly what it is you do, so that when a hiring manager or recruiter pulls things up, they can quickly and easily see, kind of how you're positioning yourself. And you want to use hard specific things like this person here, network security, agile project delivery, DevOps, special access programs. These are some very specific things. And so I think this was done really well. And I certainly suggest folks, kind of, and you want to keep this to a manageable number. I typically tell people to not go more than 12, which is what this is. You can go as, as low as 6, but you want to make sure that they're specific things. Now, looking down at the next section here, the beginning of this career history, this is a very unique resume. And to be honest, I think that I can really feel for this person, because I think I understand what's going on here. This is a person who leads with the whole thing. I'm a defensive cyber operations person. My key skills are all operations and cybersecurity and agile. And what has this person been doing for the last 2 years? He's been leading recruiting groups for the Air Force. That's just tough. That's just a tough thing, because the military likes to put us in places where we're no longer using the skills that they trained us for, especially the longer you stay in. And there's maybe you can kind of manipulate a little bit about where you're going to be on the transition piece before you get out, but it is what it is. You kind of go to war with the information and the battle plans that you have. So if you're doing this, it's going to be just know that it's going to be harder to connect with people, because especially in a world like cybersecurity that's always changing, you've been out of the game for a while. And that's what this is telling people. So my suggestion is number one, if this person has done some things, whether it's done projects, whether it's done professional development, whether this person has gone to conferences, try to find some way to show here that you've been relevant in the industry. I think the other piece to learn here from folks is, if you are in one of those folks who still got a few years left before you get out, and you're choosing your next duty station, if you end up at a position where you're going to be not doing what you want to do when you get out, find ways to connect with the industry, and stay relevant as much as you can, so you can have some of those bullets on your resume. Again, this is just a tough thing to do. I don't know, there may not be an answer for this, but this, if you're in this position, I think it's a good reminder that networking is always good too, because you want to be more than just a standard resume. You want to be a person. So if you're in one of these type situations where you haven't been doing the business, who and how they know you is going to really play a big part as well. Last thing about this resume, if we scroll down to the second page there, Ashley, um, what we're going to see that this resume goes on for a while. This person had a long career, did very well in the military. You don't need to go more than 10 years on a resume. You really don't. There's nothing that's going on for this gentleman. It's as hard as it is to say, in the late 20th century. Um, that's going to really pertain to what's going to happen to getting a job in 2022 or 2023. So if you want to just kind of capture that you were in the military, I suggest you can just do something like, the last 10 years. You can say, United States Air Force, prior duty stations included, bing, 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 bing. But you don't need to get into any of that stuff, because it's just kind of taking up space, and it's not anything that's going to reflect, other than the fact that it's going to, I hate to say ageism is real, but you don't want to highlight, how long you've been doing stuff. Um, your education, search, training, that was very well done, by the way. So um, that is the end of resume number 1. All right, so we're going to jump over to resume number 2 now. Again, you can see the full resume there. And on resume number 2, we're going to highlight. So sliding in here, again, we're going to start with that summary section. first of all, the summary section, the way this is set format wise, is not very well. It looks like objective and career summary. It just kind of flows. It's like just one long sentence. You might want to think about breaking this up. But even then, when we look at the words, the way it's written, a lot of extra military stuff that probably doesn't need to be in here. Decorated military professional transitioning from the Navy to a career in healthcare management, highly motivated, bringing 21 years. I always caution people that watch out for too many adjectives. Decorated military professional doesn't mean a whole lot to people on the outside necessarily. Highly motivated, extraordinary leader. These are the types of things that you're going to be able to show in an interview, but no one's going to take your word for it in your career summary that you're an extraordinary leader. Just saying it doesn't mean that it's so. So you're diluting your resume when you start adding too many adjectives, and I encourage you to distill it down a little bit. Something similar here about this key skills for this person here. Um, Key skills is great. You mentioned with the last resume, I kind of talked about how it's good to list those things, but a lot of these key skills here are again very soft skills. You know, um, Supervision, work ethic, customer service, people skills. Um, those aren't the things that people are looking for to see on a resume. You're much this person here is a healthcare administrator, has done some entomology type work, even if whether you're going to be in a healthcare or just in a clinic or whatever. Thinking about the key skills more aligned of what that took. What kind of programs did you manage? What kind of environments did you work in, are much more important. And when you start to put together a resume for a specific job, this key skills area, you're what you're going to want to look back at the job descriptions that you're applying for, some job descriptions in the industry, to find out what kind of keywords and phrases are really important, and what kind of tools do people use, what kind of environments do they work in. That's what you need to have in your key skills section, not some of these softer things. I also encourage people to watch out for throwing things like combat planning in there. I know sometimes we've done great stuff. I was in served in the with as a Navy hospital corpsman for 20 years and did a few tours at the Marine Corps overseas. Sometimes the coolest stuff we do doesn't belong on a resume, and just saying you did it in combat, that's not a good thing. You might think that it is, because we tell each other, well, if you can do it in combat, you can do it in the States. Well, if you say that you did stuff in combat and you're talking to a company that doesn't do stuff in combat, you've just built a gap between you instead of a bridge. You make them wonder, like, what was combat like? You don't even want to highlight that. Just highlight what it is you do and what you can do for that company, to make them to make them feel comfortable with bringing you in for an interview. So somewhere inside here too, like I had mentioned, this person does a lot of different things. I think that you're going to want to kind of figure out where you're trying to target this resume and what specific areas. Um, your experience section there, the experience section, has got this is something that you might want to clean up just a little bit as far as just the way it looks. You've got a lot of stuff in there, but you're also um, it's more of a job description. It's very good things, um, but this is where you want to distill it down to what direction you're going in. These key skills area might change depending on if this is a resume focused on doing something specifically with entomology, versus instead saying, let's say you're planning to apply for a job running a clinic that works in just like an emergency medicine clinic out in town. At that point, you don't really need to talk about mosquitoes and that kind of stuff as much as you want to talk about just managing the clinic. Also, some things in here, in your experience, you've thrown in a few extra military things that probably don't necessarily belong in there. Navy and Marine Corps achievement medals are great. They don't really belong on your resumes, and they especially don't belong on the resume if you're not going to say what it was for. you know but I know what a NAM is. You know what a NAM is. If you're in the Army, you know what an Army achievement medal is. You know the difference between a NAM and a COM, and a meritorious service medal. Other folks don't. They just see that it's some kind of a medal, and again, it just highlights something that, like, there's literally would be people go like, wow, did you kill somebody to get a medal? Like, it just highlights the differences. Same thing with Command Senior Sailor of the Year. Great accomplishment, but you really want to highlight the reasons that you were selected for those things and how they relate to the job, as opposed to just saying that um, that you did those things, that you got those awards. Um, then if you slide down, Ashley, we're going to get down to education and training for this person here. Um, and This is not bad. I like the way, this has got some good stuff. I really want to highlight a positive thing in this one too. This person's got organizational management as a graduate certificate, expected June 2023. I definitely encourage people to list things that they're working on in terms of certifications and things like that, because it's going to highlight, if they run a search for those certs, it's going to highlight it. It encourages on your resume, and it shows that you're doing things right now, and it helps them understand that you're still active in the business. If we swing back to that first resume we looked at, if that person was still pursuing certs, even though he was in the recruiting business and not doing cybersecurity, listing that, saying, expected completion date, whatever, is important. So good on you for putting that on there. I think that's a good way to go on those things. All right, so we're doing pretty good on time here. That's 2 resumes in 15 minutes, considering a lot of recruiters give you about, what, 6 seconds, they say. Um, so we're going to move on to resume 3. Resume 3. All right. So this person here, we're going to go ahead and jump into the professional summary part. So if we look at this one here, you see, right, it starts with sergeant, first name, last name. There was a real name there. Again, drop the rank. The last thing you want someone to do is we're used to in the military kind of assuming ranks of what that means. You know, um, you don't want someone who's looking at this to look at your sergeant rank and think, oh my God, he's only a sergeant, right? Versus the other person who is lieutenant colonel. You don't want someone who, you know, the hiring manager to be somebody who's like, you know what, I hate those senior officers. So, like, don't just drop the ranks on all the stuff. Just be you, be yourself, be yourself. That's what you want to be. Um, on the summary section here, this person's summary section is only 2 sentences long, and it's kind of, just to be honest with you, it's a little bit bland. Analytic and strategic self-starter with excellent problem solving and time management skills, organized, efficient, and always willing to go the extra mile to meet expectations. Again, this is kind of, it doesn't tell me anything. It's kind of fluff. It's nice words that you're saying about yourself. Um, you know, I get it. That sometimes it can be tough, and you feel like, well, I have to put something in there. I didn't know what to say, so I just filled up the space. Some things, if nothing else, this is a good place to definitely say when you're going to be getting out of the military. That you can say that, transitioning Army veteran, eligible for hire, summer of 2022 or something like that. That can be a good thing. um, Number 3, we go down to our skills, our skills section there. Again, key skills is important. There's some really good ones on here, but there's also a lot of fluff that I think dilutes it. The ones that I thought were like some of the most good ones: supply chain management, which was like the third on the left, and then the last 4, great. PPE compliance, inventory counts, data entry, audit preparation. You know, they're kind of spread out, but things like self-motivated, dependable, and responsible. Again, that's not what's going to get you the interview, because you said that. So just drop those pieces off there. Focus on the things that are specific. Now let's go ahead and roll down to that work history there, Ashley, if we can. So the work history, there's some good stuff and there's some bad stuff in here. The first thing that's the bad part is there's way too many military acronyms in here. Just way too many military acronyms. You know, as a non-commissioned officer, battalion staff, S1 department. I know that that's the admin department, but other people aren't going to know what S1 is. They're not going to know S1 from S3 to S6, right? Um, you know, when you start talking about using IPSA and eMilpo and iPerms, and I don't know what those are either. You know, it was good. It was a good attempt because you're showing the tools that you used, and that's important because that's you're going in the right direction on that. You want to think more along the lines of, what did these tools actually accomplish? Like, what was the purpose of the tools to say that you were logging this kind of data into a web-based application or something like that? If because you've looked at a job description, or because you've talked to somebody at a company that you're trying to get this resume to, and they use these things, then absolutely put it on there, because that's going to make a connection. But if it's the kind of thing that they don't use, then you don't want to list it. You definitely want to watch out for too many military acronyms that are in there. You listed your job as assistant PSNCO AGR. You're much better off to say that you're a person. personnel specialist or an admin specialist or something like that. Even to the if you wanted to go with the office manager, data entry, those types of things might be better to go. Um, and then if we slide down there to the end of the resume, Ashley, keep on going. Yeah. So our education here, this is some good stuff, but I would just, this is again, I don't want to be nitpicky, but you have sections there where it says no degree. It took me a while to figure out what that meant. It looks like that the class must have been called Human Resources Specialist at Fort Knox. I would list the name of the class as opposed to whether or not what kind of degree it was. You want to show, you know, um, just that you could just list it as a class, especially because it's relatively recent too. Like I had mentioned, I'm going to mention somebody else's classes here on the last one. But the fact that human resources specialist course at Fort Knox was expected to be done this month, you know, um, then that's a good thing. But I would list with the title of the class as opposed to saying no degree, because that's going to be, you know, um, it just people just have a question what that even means. Um, I would watch out for things like basic leadership course. That's can be nice, but it's kind of it's probably expected by the Army, but it also isn't the kind of thing that's a big resume builder as much. Um, and the Army Quartermaster School, now you're looking at almost 10 years ago. Um, so you might want to think about whether or not you really want to have that on the resume. So before we jump to the last one, I know I've said a bunch of things like, demilitarize and take out those soft skills. This is not to say that soft skills are not important, because they are, and they are things that the military folks bring to the table. But you show your soft skills at the resume. I mean, at the resume at the interview, and the soft skills are what really gets you promoted more so than getting hired, because everybody says they're a nice person. Everybody says they get along with everybody until they actually get put on a team, right? Once you're on the team, that's when you can exhibit those soft skills. So that I'm not saying that those things aren't important. I'm just saying this is not the time to highlight them in this particular manner, because you're diluting it, and that's not going into the consideration of who to bring in for an interview. So, all right, let's jump over to our last one. Our last resume, and you can see it's all set up there. So this one, first name, last name, got the email address, professional summary part here, you know, um, again, it's kind of fluffy a little bit, and it's a little bit too written like a letter. It makes some assumptions. He says, I'm a well-rounded industrial electrician that has 26 years experience serving in the U.S. Navy with a multitude of electric components and equipment. I think your company and I would be a good match. I am hardworking, loyal, and honest person who would be an asset to you. So the last half of that, you know, you don't really know if you'd be a company would be a good match. You haven't talked to the company. That's what the interview's for. That's the kind of thing after the interview. If you go to the interview and you learn about that company and you want to send your thank you letter for the interview, absolutely say that. You know what? Hey, I love the interview process. I love talking to these people. I think I would be a great fit. Don't make the assumption now on a resume when this looks like a resume you could have sent out to 100 companies. It looks kind of disingenuous. Um, the hardworking, loyal, honest person. Again, same thing. Don't toot your own horn too much on that stuff. Um, Now, something that's in this professional summary is good, and then it just lacks afterwards. You got 26 years experience in the Navy with a multitude of electrical components and equipment, but this resume itself um, doesn't have the key skills section. That key skills section is exactly where you'd list some of those electronical components and equipment that you've worked with, tools, radios, different things that you've done, different, what the actual hard things that you've done, especially things that are still being used by companies today. That should be in your key skills area. So if you list that multitude and you leave that in your section, in your summary, you could do that. Follow it up with listing those key skills part. Um, when you get down to the experience part, you see the first part, trainer, and certifier, trained engineer, department proper safe repair, casualty response. This is where you need to get some. that just explains the job. That what you've done there is you've listed the job description that everybody, that whether you were great at it or whether you were lousy at it, that right there, um, it just describes what you're supposed to do. You want some bullet points in here to kind of highlight what it is you did specifically, what kind of programs you did, what kind of tools you used, and those types of things. And you might want to just from a format standpoint, look at a little bit bolding of things, like the job title. You know, a lot of times what folks will do is they will slide over that date to the far right, so that you'll have on one side it'll have the name of the company and the job title. On the other side, it'll have the date that you were doing that. If you were looking at if the issue here was that you weren't very familiar with or didn't feel comfortable putting together a document that looked nice, that's where you can look for some things that are kind of commercial off the shelf, easy Word document things for resumes. um, I never tell people that they really need to go out and pay a lot of money for a resume writer. They really shouldn't. There's a lot of great advice out there that doesn't cost anything. But you certainly can talk to people that who are used to working around Microsoft Word or other types of programs, just to make it a little bit cleaner looking, to make it easier to read. Um, so uh, Sliding down a little bit on towards the bottom of this first page, again, this person took it, this is a 26-year veteran, went all the way back down to, March of 1997, describing what they did from 1997 to the year 2000. Same deal. You don't need to go back 20 years. You just go back 10 at the most. And when you go back 10, you should have more bullets in the last 5 or 6 years, and less bullets in the last like years 6 through 10, right? Because the stuff that you did most recently is the stuff that's most valuable for people when they're looking to who to pick up. You know, so it's kind of like an inverted pyramid in that regard. And then our education, this person education just listed everything, like all the way back to classes they took in 1996. Really go through and look at some of these classes are great. Some of these classes are very, the Navy, like let's take a look at Navy instructor training at Kings Bay, Georgia in 2019. If you were applying for a position that was teaching electronics, for example, that's a super relevant class, super relevant, especially to go along with the fact that you've got a long experience working with electronics, right? Um, and it's also recent, you know. Maintenance University is only in 2018. That's good too. But when you start sliding back down way deep into things like, underway replenishment in 2003 class, you know, this is an example of things that are now diluted instead of distilled. So just distill things down to just the stuff that's the most relevant. So, um, is that the last one? I believe that's the last one, right, Ash. So we are just about 30 minutes through, which is what we were trying to do. Um, what I do want to let folks know is, number one, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm Bob Wheeler, ClearedJobs.net. Bob Wheeler 5 is what you're going to find me at on on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me and connect. I'm happy to connect with any veterans. If you have a question, I'm happy to help. Happy to answer things. If you are interested in possibly having your resume part of our review sessions that we're going to be doing, you can reach us at militarymonday@clearedjobs.net. If you've got tips too, if you've got just want to reach us and just give us your feedback on how this went, you can also do it that way as well. But if you've got a resume and say, hey, I'd like to submit my resume, what we'll do is we take your resume. If it looks like it's going to be a good fit for that particular episode, we'll pull out your personal information and we reach out to you and let you know, hey, we've selected your resume so that you'll have some idea that it's going to be out there. But we don't let people know what your name is or how to get a hold of you or nothing like that. So that is it. ClearedJobs.net is we're a job board. We're here for the veterans. Besides getting your resume on our site so that job recruiters can find you, I do also want to throw out there that we've got a job fair coming up. We do our own job fairs. We just had one last week, a virtual event that was sold out as far as our companies went. We had a ton of companies. We had a ton of job seekers that were there. It was very well attended as a virtual event. And we're also doing in-person events. And so our next event happens to be in person. It's going to be April the 7th. It's for all clearance levels. So secret and above, whatever. And it's in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. If you go to ClearedJobs.net site, you can go to job fairs and you can see more information. You can see the companies that are going to be there. As you get closer, you can click on the companies and see what kind of positions they're looking to fill. And even if you can't make it to that job fair in person, anytime job seekers submit their resume as a registration for the job fair, then that resume gets included in the resume file that goes to all those companies who attend. So even just by registering, you can still get your resume included. Um, and if you're a transitioning veteran, just as I wrap this up, that summary section, distill it down. If you're getting out, feel free to tell people that you're in the service right now, you're getting out at such and such a time. You could even say for something like this, you could even say that, submitting this resume for the April 7th job fair with ClearedJobs.net. You can change these little things on your resume as you go for different purposes. And that summary section can change a little bit. Just resumes are not fit reps. They're not evaluations. Watch out for the military speak. Watch out for militarizing it too much. That just dilutes it. You want to distill it. But again, I'm Bob. I'm at ClearedJobs.net. Military Mondays at ClearedJobs.net. I'm on LinkedIn, and we are here for you. So that's it for this Monday. We will see you the first Monday of April, and we'll be talking about some other stuff, and we'll probably be chatting about some resumes as well. So have a great day, everybody.